Okay, this webinar is now being recorded. Welcome to our Ask the Expert session on Energy Star's benchmarking program with our speaker, Danny McRae, Industrial Sector Manager with the EPA's Energy Star program. Quickly, I'm going to kick it over to Eric Reller, Discus Chief of Strategic Initiatives, to say a few words as well.
Thanks, Molly. Discus is a proud Energy Star Association partner. And as part of the work of the Discus Sustainability Committee, we are supporting Energy Star's efforts to develop a program for distilleries. So we're excited to hand it over to Danny to discuss how the tool they're developing can save your distillery energy as well as costs. So with that, over to Danny.
Great. Thank you very much, Eric. Appreciate the introduction. As Eric said, I am Danny McRae, and I am with the US EPA's Energy Star program. I've been in this role for about 5 years now, and today I'm here to tell you a little bit about Energy Star and an energy benchmarking tool that we are developing, which can help your efforts to save energy and improve the bottom line. So over the next 15 to 20 minutes, there are 3 key messages I would like to convey. The first is how saving energy can help your distillery. Sometimes it's hard to know if there are a lot of energy saving opportunities in your distillery. So the first step in energy management is benchmarking, or understanding if your distillery is performing better or worse than others that are like yours. And Energy Star currently has a draft tool to help distilleries understand how energy efficient and cost efficient they are. And then I'm going to wrap up to explain that the benchmarking tool that we have, it still needs to be refined, and that you guys, distilleries, have a critical role in helping us improve that, so that you have a good benchmarking tool for your distillery and for the industry. But first, I would like to get an idea of how many people are familiar with Energy Star. So we're going to launch a poll question that's going to ask you where you've seen the Energy Star before. So it should come up on your screen, and it's asking whether you've seen the Energy Star on appliances, whether you've seen it on a commercial building or a home, or maybe if you've seen it on a manufacturing plant, or maybe all the above, or nowhere. All right, so Molly, whenever I think there's been a good number of responses, let's see the results. All right, so it looks like most people have seen the Energy Star on appliances. It looks like everyone who responded is familiar, so that's great to hear. But only a few people have seen Energy Star on manufacturing plants. So just like we certify appliances that are the most energy efficient, we also certify manufacturing plants that are the most energy efficient in the country. So in the bottom left, this is Dave's Killer Bread. They're a commercial bakery that is Energy Star certified. Okay, so Energy Star, in addition to appliances, we also work with manufacturers to help them improve energy and save money on energy across their operations. Energy Star has worked with over 750 companies over the last 2 decades in a number of different sectors. And we've worked with companies of all sizes, both small and large. And one thing that's unique about Energy Star at the EPA is that it's a voluntary program. And the only reason we're doing work with distilleries is because Energy Star was invited to do so. So over a year ago, Energy Star was approached by a few state sustainable spirits initiatives and distilleries, asking if we could provide some tools to help them get a better idea of how they can manage energy. And they've also asked us if we could consider certifying distilleries. So that's the reason why we are working with the sector and why we're developing this benchmarking tool, which I will be talking about. But the first thing to understand is that saving energy can help your distilleries. So I understand that distilleries, especially craft distilleries, have a lot on your plates. I know a lot of people wear different hats, and sometimes energy may not be a top priority. But taking some steps to manage energy can really help you in areas of operations and sustainability communication with your customers. So in 2017, the distilling industry spent $60 million on electricity and fuel. If you're able to reduce some of your energy, that amount would go down and you could redirect those funds to different areas of your operations. And similarly, if you are able to reduce the amount of fuel that you're burning on site or the electricity that you're using, you're also going to lower your greenhouse gas emissions. So that could also help with sustainability communications. Now, if you were going to diagram energy use and energy flows in a distillery, you'll see that it's practically in every process. So it's you're going to generate hot water or steam in your boiler and chilled water in your chiller. And that's going to be conveyed to different areas of your plant through pumps and motors. And then it's going to be consumed in your mash tuns, your kettles, your stills, and anything that you can do to reduce that use while still maintaining the same product output can save money and can improve your sustainability. But you may be asking, how do you know whether you're using a lot of energy or little energy? And is there anything that can be improved? So that is where benchmarking is going to come in. So benchmarking would be comparing your distillery's energy use and energy costs to distilleries that are similar to yours. And the reason why benchmarking is really the first step in saving money on energy is because if you know that you're using a lot of energy for a unit of product, it means that you could probably, and others are using less than you, it means that there's probably a lot of opportunities for savings. And then similarly, benchmarking really ground truths how sustainable you are. You maybe think that you're a leader in efficiency, only to find out maybe you're average and you could be doing a lot better. So those are some of the values of benchmarking. So let's just pause a moment and just do some quick benchmarking ourselves. I would like to get an idea of how common it is for companies to have an idea of how much energy and money you spend on energy compared to other distilleries. So the question on the screen is asking, do you know how much money your distillery spends on energy compared to others? Maybe you know precisely, maybe you think you do, but you're really not sure, or maybe you don't know at all. And by the way, I'm not seeing any of these results, so they're all aggregated. All right, so Molly, whenever you're ready. Okay, so it looks like all the respondents really don't have an idea of whether you're spending more or less money on energy compared to others. And this is understandable. I know energy is not a top priority, so it isn't going to be a priority for you. And secondly, asking a peer how much money or how much energy you're spending could be confidential. So it could be sensitive. So you may not want to ask. And that's, again, where benchmarking and Energy Star benchmarking tools come in. So Energy Star benchmarking tools are going to provide your distillery a 1 to 100 score that shows how energy efficient you are compared to distilleries like yours. So in other words, it's if you're using a certain amount of energy per unit of product, you will get a score that would say whether you're using a lot or more or less, with 50 being the average. Now, I mentioned that we developed a draft one of these for distilleries, but Energy Star has been developing these tools for other industrial sectors over the last 15 years. In fact, we've worked with other associations whose members wanted a benchmarking tool like this. So we've worked with the American Bakers Association on developing one for commercial bakeries and cookie and cracker plants. We've also worked with the Portland Cement Association for creating a tool on cement. And we've worked with close to 20 other industries as well. So you may be asking, what exactly goes into the score? You know that you're getting a 1 to 100 score based on how efficient you are. So I would say that the score is first going to be based off of your energy intensity. So how much energy it takes for you to produce a unit of product, gallon produced, for example. That's going to be the basis. But the thing is, manufacturing plants and distilleries are complex. And because of that, we may want to adjust for some other things. So for example, it may not be fair to compare a small distillery to a large distillery if there are economies of scale. The large distillery may be better, so we want to adjust for that if that actually is the case. Similarly, it may not be fair to compare a rum distillery, which has a wash with a high ABV, to a whiskey distillery where the wash will be 8 to 10%. It'll probably take less energy in a rum distillery. So our Energy Star tools are going to adjust for factors like these. So you really would be able to compare your type of distillery to others like yours. So you may be asking, that's great in theory. What does this look like in practice? What do I do to get a score? So I did mention we have a draft distillery energy performance indicator already developed. This has a few screenshots of what it currently looks like. All of our tools are based in Excel. They're free to use. You don't have to create a login or anything. Once it's final, you would download it. You would put in some information about your plant, how much you produce, maybe a little bit about the weather and the energy use for a 12-month period. And then what's going to happen is the tool is going to project how much energy a distillery with your characteristics would use, what the average amount would be. And the thing is, once you have all of this data, it only takes a minute to input it into the tool. I mean, I'm sure everyone's going to have information on their energy use and production, so it shouldn't take that much time to actually input the data. Once you input the information about your characteristics, the Excel tool is going to spit out a lot of different information that may be useful to you. So the first thing it's going to tell you is what the score of your distillery is. So in this example, this distillery got a 73. And that means that this distillery is 73% more efficient than distilleries with similar characteristics. It's also going to show you how much energy an average facility, so one with a score of 50 would use, and one that's in the top quartile of performance would use. And similarly, it will tell you what the energy intensities for that would be. So if you're tracking energy on an intensity basis, you'll get an idea of how far away you are from the average or a high performing distillery. So again, let's just do two more quick polls. I would like to get an idea on a scale from 1 to 10, how important finding cost savings are in your operations. So in this case, if finding cost savings is not important, you'd put a 1. It's in the middle, do a 5. If it's very important, put a 10. And we could show the results when we're ready. Okay, so not surprisingly, finding cost savings is going to be at least 5 or above. All right, thanks, Molly. And let's ask the second question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how important is communicating sustainability of your distillery to your customers or your community? So again, if it's not that important, a 1. If it's very important, put a 10. Again, these results are aggregated. I'm not going to see who says what. Okay, so for this, it looks like for most distilleries, it is somewhat important, maybe not as important as cost, but sustainability is still an important aspect that you want to communicate. So if you said finding cost savings is important, the Energy Star EPI will be useful for you. It's going to be useful because it's going to very quickly show you how much money you're leaving on the table from energy waste. So in this example over here, this distillery spent, and this is all fictitious data, this distillery spent $52,000 on energy in a 12-month period. It has a score of a 33, meaning it's a low performer. It's going to say if it was going to increase its performance to a 50, it would spend approximately $20,000 less on energy. And what this is saying is that there are others in the industry who are spending less on energy for the same amount of product. So, and this is especially important because if you have a low score, it's saying that you could that there's probably a lot of low hanging fruit, some quick wins that you get for increasing your efficiency. Now, if you said communicating sustainability is important, the EPI will also be useful for you. So a distillery may be new and designed to be energy efficient with heat exchangers, VFDs, LEDs, the works, but it may not actually be efficient in practice. So for example, you could buy a treadmill and really expensive running shoes, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be a better runner. What you actually want to measure is your performance. So the Energy Star tool is going to tell you the equivalent of how long it takes for you to run a mile, or how much energy you're using per unit of product. And it's going to rank you, it's going to give you a score based on others that are in your class. So if you want to know if you are as sustainable as you can be, this will be useful for you. And another reason why Energy Star may be useful is because, as I said earlier, the US EPA certifies the most energy efficient plants in the country. So if your distillery gets a score of 75 or higher on the EPI, you could be an Energy Star certified distillery, meaning you could put the Energy Star mark on your distillery. And that can speak volumes to your distillery's sustainability. Energy Star, as we saw in the poll earlier, is recognized by a lot of people, and it's considered the nation's symbol of energy efficiency. In this chart over here, it shows how much trust and how much awareness the public has about different environmental brands. Energy Star has 92% awareness and trust. And I think it is interesting because it has more trust and awareness than the EPA logo, and EPA administers the program. So that just shows that if you are trying to communicate your sustainability to your customers, being able to affiliate with a brand that already has high recognition can go a long way. So I hope you've seen why saving energy is important and how benchmarking with Energy Star can help find cost savings and communicate your performance. I did mention we have a draft tool, and that model relies on data from the US Census of Manufacturing surveys. So every few years, the census asks manufacturers questions on their energy and production data. And our team at Duke University, who creates the models, has access to that. The advantage of this is we have information on distilleries already. We wouldn't need to ask anything. The disadvantage is that that data is almost 10 years old, meaning the model doesn't really count for distilleries that have opened since 2012. So we want to improve the performance of our model to incorporate data from new distilleries. We also want to do a better job adjusting for factors that drive energy use, such as energy for managing spent grain and for different processes. So we've taken this as far as we can with the data available. And as I noted in the beginning, Energy Star is doing this because distilleries wanted this tool. So we're really going to need your help to provide data to help improve the model. So how will that work exactly? We're working with Discus, and Discus has been an excellent partner. Discus will be facilitating a data collection effort among its members within the next few weeks. So be on the lookout for an email that's going to ask for your voluntary participation to provide data on your energy use and production characteristics for your distillery. What I would like to mention is that there are a lot of other industries and industry associations where their benchmarking tools are based on data from association-driven efforts. I mentioned commercial bakeries and cement as being two of those. So this kind of activity is not anything out of the ordinary. The questions that we're going to ask are we're going to ask questions about the energy use for 1 to 3 years worth of for 1 to 3 years worth of data, and distillery plant characteristics, such as the amount of grain that you'd use, the proof of the wash and the distillate, climate controls, and things like that. And the reason why it's asking for that data is because you may remember that the Energy Star tool is going to adjust for different factors that drive energy use. So we would need some information on production so that you would be able to compare a rum to a whiskey distillery, or you would be able to compare a large distillery to a small distillery. So that's the reason why we would have information on that. So we're also asking that anyone that participates, and let me just mention that participation is completely voluntary, but we do encourage you to participate. If you do participate, we're asking for participants to send the data directly to our team at Duke University. Duke has been working with Energy Star over the past 15, 20 years to develop models like these for other industries. So I have my colleague from Duke, Matt Doolin, on the phone as well, and he could help answer any questions. But all that data is going directly to Duke. It's not being shared with EPA, Energy Star, or DISCUS. And if your company would like a non-disclosure agreement, Duke would be able to provide that. When they get the data from the industry, they are going to analyze it to develop an algorithm that can be plugged into the benchmarking tool. None of the plant level data would be shared with others. So I would like to close by just explaining that distilleries, large and small, have a very important role in this process. To put it bluntly, we really can't create an energy benchmarking tool or certify any distilleries if we don't have a reliable model. So participating in this data collection effort would help us refine that tool. Now you may be saying that the EPI sounds great. I would love to use it when it's available, but I don't want to do the survey. I would encourage you to participate, because if we only get participation from one kind of distillery, if we only get participation from large distilleries, the tool is only going to work for large distilleries, and vice versa. If we only get it from small, it'll only work for small. So we are looking for a diversity of participation. So please be on the lookout for an email from DISCUS, which will be sent in the next 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. We will be having another webinar if you have specific questions on the data collection effort. And we would ask for you to consider to spend between 20 to 40 minutes, probably on the lower side, to complete the form. So I would just close by saying, if you are concerned with your operational costs, if you are concerned with the sustainability of your operations or the sustainability of the industry as a whole, taking a half hour or so to complete this form would go a very long way in helping create a foundational energy benchmarking tool. So I appreciate your time. I know it's valuable, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks for a great presentation. As Danny said, at this point, we'll open it up for questions. You can use the Q&A feature to ask your questions directly to Danny.
Okay. And while we're waiting for questions, I mentioned my colleague, Matt Doolin from Duke University is on the line. Matt, is there anything else that you wanted to add about the data collection form or confidentiality?
Yeah. So like Danny said, I work with the census data, and that is federally protected, and we take confidentiality very seriously. And so whenever we receive data from industry participants, we treat it like that. We wouldn't be in a job if we didn't take care of people's data, because people would stop wanting to send it to us. And so this is not the first industry that we've worked with, and we have NDAs in place with some distillers already. who we've had discussions with. And that's something we can happily do with anybody who would feel more comfortable with having that in place.
Thanks, Matt. I see that we have one question. Once data is collected, what is the timeline for getting usable data for benchmarking? So let me try to lay out the timeline. Over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we are going to be sending the survey out to all distilleries. We're going to give people probably about 6 weeks to complete the form. Assuming we get enough participation at the end of the 6 weeks, Matt will start analyzing the data. After that, Matt, do you want to explain generally what the timeline would be?
Yeah. So once all the data has been collected, because that can take a little bit. When we do this, we generally have a few people who send it in very quickly, and then we have some stragglers that we kind of prod and try and get more data in. And then after that, we start the analysis, and then we'll follow up with any companies if we have any questions, or if there seems to be some sort of data gaps in what was sent in. And then after that, it usually takes a month or so of analysis, and then maybe another month of putting the actual tool together and doing the QA and making sure that that's that there's no bugs or anything like that. So I'd say after we get the data, a couple of months to get things, to do the analysis and kind of manage any hiccups that might arise during that, and then get something back out to industry. Does that sound about right, Danny?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say if we get a really good response rate in that 6 weeks and there's not a lot of follow-up, we could probably have a draft out maybe in the fall, later this year for testing. And before we're going to publish it, we're going to ask people to test the model to make sure it works as anticipated. So if we don't have it all by then, it may take a little bit longer. But I know we're excited to have this benchmarking tool, so hopefully everything will go as planned.
Great, thanks, Danny. It doesn't look like we have any more questions in the Q&A box right now, but we'll pause briefly, just give you some more time to ask your questions. And if you have questions too in the coming days too, you can reach out to the membership team directly and I'll connect you to Danny as well.
Thank you, Molly.
Okay. With that, just wanted to say thank you again, Danny, and to Matt too, and to all of our participants who joined us today. A quick note before we part ways that there's going to be a survey at the end of the webinar when you hang up the call, so please be sure to share your thoughts there. And with that, this concludes our recording and the presentation. We hope to see you at the next webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.